The Edmonton Oilers failed to recapture their Western Conference final magic against the Dallas Stars on Saturday night. What that means for the season so far, what it means for what comes ahead, and a whole lot more on today's edition of Locked On Oilers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Monday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who's making Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So on today's episode, we are going to take what happened Saturday night against the Stars, and we're going to try and extrapolate that out a little bit more and see how the themes that popped up in that game that are emerging as, I won't say trends yet because we haven't played enough games, but as identifiable patterns and points of monitoring. So our first segment, we're going to talk about transition play, both in terms of offense and defense. Our second segment, we're going to highlight special teams, the power play and the penalty kill, which are both struggling mightily so far. And then our final segment, we're going to talk about the integration process of some of the Oilers' new players. So at the outset, it's very clear, and I said this a few weeks ago, I said this last week, and I'm probably going to keep saying this. The Oilers underwent a lot in a very short period of time. The players who were on that team, who went all the way to a Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final, the offseason, the offer sheets, a new general manager, first full offseason for Chris Knobloch as a head coach, the life stuff, McDavid getting married, a whole lot happens in a very short period of time. And the Oilers really tried to shore up what they felt were their weaknesses. And based on the way that the Oilers, and in this case, Jim Jackson, who was the GM on July 1st, spent the money, it's very clear they felt they needed to score more goals, that their problem against Florida was that they didn't score enough, that Florida was too good defensively. So Edmonton was willing to prioritize their spending a little bit more on offensive players and forwards, as opposed to maybe improving their defense and trying to be better defensively. So with that in mind, we can say objectively that so far through the first few weeks of games, the Oilers are not gelling. And I, for one, am still pretty inclined to believe that with time, this situation will begin to rectify itself. I believe the Oilers are going to explode for some goals at some point. I know the power play, which we'll talk about in the second segment, hasn't really gotten going yet. And that's really impacting the Oilers' ability to win games because they are so dependent on that power play to really kind of take over games, to swing games, to give them that edge that most teams don't have when you have players as talented as McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman and Bouchard and Nugent-Hopkins all on one unit. But right now, it's very clear to me, it's very apparent to me that the Oilers are stressed, that the Oilers are pressing, and because they are pressing, they are struggling to get their, for the lack of a better phraseology, struggling to get their heads in the game, to think about High School Musical for a second. It is clear that they are a little jumpy. It is clear they are a little skittish, that they are trying to avoid making the mistake. And because they are trying to avoid making mistakes, they continue to make mistakes. The first Dallas goal happens in transition because Evan Bouchard loses an edge and falls down and doesn't get up back. He doesn't get up again fast enough to backtrack down on the play. And I think it's noticeable that Bouchard has been a little skittish on the blue line, that he's taken some lower quality chances, that he is not getting the puck on net nearly as much as he has done in the past, and that is starting to impact the other areas of his game. I feel that Bouchard is definitely trying really, really, really hard to get the Oilers going, because this is a talented hockey player who knows he has an important role on this team as far as their success. But the fact that Bouchard, who I feel went the entire playoffs without really making a mistake walking the blue line, keeps losing edges, keeps being out of position, keeps getting caught off guard by what are, I don't want to say routine, but relatively straightforward hockey plays. You get that puck on the blue line switch, Bouchard should be able to receive that puck cleanly, take a step or two, and then look shot or pass. But he just, for whatever reason, whether he lost his concentration or if the ice was poor and he just happened to hit an unfortunate patch on said ice that made him lose that edge, it happened. And the Stars came back in transition and scored. And I think the fact that the majority of Dallas's offense, and look, Dallas is a great transition team. I struggle to think of a team other than maybe Edmonton that Dallas isn't as good at, that Dallas is better than in transition. Like when Dallas is going up and down, up and down, up and down, it really starts to wear away at you. And that's their strength. They might not necessarily be the best cycle team. They might not necessarily be the most talented team. But what Dallas does is they come at you in waves. They tire you out, and they are constantly putting you on the defensive. And when you are constantly on the defensive, you're more inclined to make a mistake. And I think that's the single most important thing for the Oilers right now is minimizing the amount of defense they need to play. And until they can get more offense going, more zone time, more offensive pressure, it's going to continue to be difficult for them to score. And the Oilers didn't score on Saturday night till it was 3-0. They pulled the goalie with, I want to say, 3-ish minutes to go for the Draisaitl goal. But when you are a team as talented as the Oilers and you are playing someone like Dallas who wants to play the same style you do, it creates a very difficult proposition in that you need to, at times, you're going to need to play in a way you might not necessarily want to. And I don't think the Oilers want to turn themselves into the Flyers or the Hurricanes or the Stars for that matter, but they do need to get more offensive zone time. They do need to get more pressure. They do need to get their guys going. You got to get McDavid going. You got to get Hyman going. You got to get Arvidsson going. I've been relatively impressed with Jeff Skinner. I still don't really have any reservations about his game so far. He is what he is, but he's playing to what he is at a really high level. And until the Oilers offense gets going, these defensive and goaltending issues are going to continue to be problematic. They're going to be troublesome because the Oilers are a talented hockey team. They had really high expectations. And when you marry those two things together, that makes the Oilers a team that is ripe for shortcomings and a team that is ripe to get lost in its own head. And this is purely my projection. I haven't spoken to guys on the Oilers. I haven't seen reporting to this effect, but in watching the way they're playing, it is clear everybody is still feeling each other out. There are new faces, there are new line mates, there are new responsibilities, new special teams, and all of that is interconnected. We did that whole episode last week about how hockey is like the human body, where you got offense, defense, goaltending, special teams. The body has bones, ligaments, muscles, tendons, and you need everything in sync, because if you don't, one part starts to overcompensate for the others, and that makes you susceptible. And right now, the Oilers are very susceptible defensively and in net because they're not scoring enough. And the Oilers are not constructed in a way that they can win hockey games consistently 2-1, 3-2. The Oilers need open-ended, high-speed, high-intensity hockey where they trade chances because they know their defense and their goaltending aren't good enough. And look, you can have your qualms about Stuart Skinner, who I don't think has been bad by any stretch. He hasn't been good, but the Oilers cannot expect Stuart Skinner to be one of their best players all of the time. It is simply an unrealistic proposition and something that is going to put them in increasingly uncomfortable situations, because it's not like you have a prospect goalie you can go to. And Calvin Pickard, though a solid backup, is not somebody you can depend on to be a 50-game NHL starter. You just can't. He has not been a consistent NHL starter in almost a decade at this point, going back to his time when he was with Colorado. But right now, and you saw glimmers of this, the Flyer game, great example. They did a really nice job of that. They did a reasonably okay job of it in the Nashville game, but I need to see the Oilers get to their game. And that starts with their special teams, which we are going to talk about next, coming up on this edition of Locked On Oilers. We are all driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to hire isn't to search. Don't search. Match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Indeed leverages over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, which allows Indeed's matching engine to learn from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Monday edition of Locked On Oilers as we try and stave off the Monday blues. Busy weekend for me. I am exhausted, but I for one, like the challenge that the Oilers are being presented right now. They made aggressive maneuvers in the offseason to reconfigure their roster in a way they thought they needed to. And I don't like knee-jerk reactions. I don't like overly simplified or reductionist arguments. I don't like people who are saying, well, Arvidsson's not really gelling well. Are you worried about it? We're 2 weeks into the season. Until we are at maybe American Thanksgiving, which isn't for another month or so, I am not worried. And anybody who is pounding the desk that they are worried, that you're not, that you should be worried, I think they mean well. And I don't want to turn this into, for the lack of a better term, a pissing contest, because that's not constructive. That's not informative for you, the viewer. I do think there are things the Oilers need to do better. I do think, like we said in that first segment, they need to get their transition play better, because it is so crucial to how the Oilers want to play. And the fact that a team that is predicated on strong transition play got outplayed in transition against Dallas, that's not great. And look, Dallas is a great team. I would not be shocked, and I said this before the season, I picked Dallas to be in the Western Conference Final and to make the Cup Final. I think Dallas is more than talented enough to win the Stanley Cup. Dallas's concerns the last few seasons, they've gotten out big dogged. And last year against the Oilers, it was McDavid going nuts. 2 years ago against Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights big stars went nuts against Dallas. But you are a hockey team with high expectations. So you don't get to make excuses. You don't get to say, well, we're trying to get two new forwards in our top 6. Trying to get 4 new top forwards in our top 12. We're trying to be able to build off of what some guys like Adam Henrique and Connor Brown and Vasily Podkolzin were doing last year. We're trying to get the ground running on what our defense is going to look like, oriented around new guys. And right now, you can tell that no matter who the Oilers play with Darnell Nurse, he is a bit sketchy. And if you're unfamiliar with the term sketchy, it just means scary. It's a synonym for scary. But the Oilers, when they are in transition or when they are behind their own net and Nurse has to make individual plays, or Stetcher or Emberson or Dermott, whoever it is, has to make an individual play, it breaks down. And I want to focus on the special teams right now, because the Oilers are a team that when you have this level of talent, your power play needs to effectively be a guaranteed goal. And the Oilers are not going to be 6% on the power play all year. If they're 6% on the power play all year, I'll eat the hat that's on my head right now, how confident I am that the offense is eventually going to get going. But that said, I do feel that some of the Oilers' power play woes are tied to Zach Hyman's slow start. And I do think Zach Hyman is off to a slow start. And I'll say it again. If you listened over the summer, you listened in the preseason, for the everydayers, you know, but I was expecting Zach Hyman to be in the ballpark of 30 goals. And at 5-on-5, him, Skinner, and McDavid have been a very commonly deployed line, and the offense just hasn't come yet. And the expected goals, the high danger chances, those are there. And it's not that they're not getting shut. It's not that they're getting shut out of the game offensively. It's not that they're not creating enough chances. The puck's not just going in. I feel very strongly that the dam is going to break for the Oilers offensively. That could be as soon as tomorrow against Carolina. It might take another week or so. But when you have this volume of offense at 5-on-5, you have these talented players in McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Bouchard, Nugent-Hopkins, Arvidsson, Skinner. When you have this much talent, if you have possession, you have shots on goal, the offense is going to come eventually. And I feel very strongly that the Oilers are going to be okay. That said, the power play being this bad is concerning. And some of it is a lack of conversion, but I do think the Oilers don't look exactly right at 5-on-5. We did that episode 2 weeks ago now, where I broke out the dry erase board and diagnosed what makes the Oilers power play so effective. The fact that McDavid makes the inflection point, the focal point, the swing point, whatever word you want to use for the power play, the fact that he is able to move that point, that he is not traditional in the sense that most distributors that orchestrate a power play, they're the defenseman who stands at the top of the offensive zone. They hold the line, they reset, they occasionally take a big shot to look for a deflection or a rebound, or they're looking for a one-timer on the flanks. McDavid, he makes that point mobile. He can be at the half wall, he can be behind the net, he can be at the point in place of Bouchard. And the Oilers, when their power play is right, there's a lot of movement. And when a power play goes cold, it is typically because of a lack of movement. And there are two elements of movement, in hockey. You can either move the puck where you want it to go by skating it there or by passing it there. And the Oilers, at times, have struggled to move their feet enough. And if you're not moving your feet, you are doing the penalty killing team a favor, because if they don't have to move, they don't have to make decisions. If they're able to hold their structure, it's a lot more complicated for an offensive and attacking team, if you will, to break down that structure. So it's imperative that the Oilers get them, whoever they happen to be playing on a given day, moving left to right. And right now, the Oilers are not generating enough high danger looks on the power play. When you go and look at the shot maps of their games so far on the power play, they are not getting the puck to that slot area. They are not getting the puck to the net front. They are not getting the puck to Zach Hyman's office. The majority of their shots are coming from that Draisaitl spot, the bottom of the right-hand side where we look for the one-timer. It is coming from Bouchard up at the right point, and it is coming from Nugent-Hopkins on the left flank, or Hyman away from the net front. And for the Oilers to get their power play going the way they needed to, they need Zach Hyman to be that guy. And again, I don't need 50 goals again from Zach Hyman. I don't think that was in the cards, even in the best case scenario, but he is a good enough hockey player that I think this is just a funk and not the beginning of some type of decline. It's not injury related. I just think it's a combination of bad luck. I think the Oilers are pressing a little bit too hard. And all of that combined is making it more glaring than it probably actually is. And then real quick on the penalty kill. Anytime you have a liability defenseman out there, in this case it's Darnell Nurse, your penalty kill is going to look worse. The decisions you make on the penalty kill as a defenseman those are the most important components of a penalty killer's game, is the decision making and the positioning. Are you in the right spot? Are you where you need to be? If you get to the puck, do you know what you need to do to it? Can you get it out of the dangerous areas? Can you move it along? You go and look at the second Duchesne goal that comes from behind the net. That happens because Darnell Nurse loses the puck. The first Matt Duchesne goal, if I remember correctly. No, excuse me, I'm wrong. The first Duchesne goal is in the high slot. I was thinking of the Rope Hintz goal behind the net. That's the play I was thinking of, where my goodness. Stetcher and Nurse go behind the net. Nurse loses it to Jason Robertson. Robertson gets it along to Stankoven, and Stankoven gets it to Rope Hintz. Because Nurse and Stetcher are behind the net, and they both lose. The puck does. Neither of them can get possession or move the puck along. Jason Robertson, who is a supremely talented player, you get beat by Jason Robertson, you can live with that at points. But in this type of game, this tight of a game, you need every little advantage you can get. And right now, that Oilers second defensive pair, or whatever penalty killing pair you have Nurse out there with, it is a liability. It is hurting the Oilers' ability to win hockey games right now. And it is putting a lot of undue pressure on Stuart Skinner, who, again, is not a bad goalie, but I don't think it's realistic to expect him to bail you out this much. And on special teams, especially on the kill, the Oilers are asking too much of Stuart Skinner. So they need to figure out whatever it is, whether it's being more aggressive, being more passive. I need to see something as far as changes. You can't change the personnel all that much. You only have so many guys you could run out there to try things out. But that'll do it for our second segment. And then real quick, we're going to take one last break on today's show. We'll come back. We'll tie a bow on the episode talking about how the new Faces are settling in on this edition of Locked On Oilers, so be sure to stick around. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet tonight. Monday Night Football doubleheader at the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson going to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Buccaneers 4.5-point home underdogs. Then late kick, Chargers at the Cardinals. Cardinals 1.5-point home underdogs. This week, the Eagles and the Bengals, two recent Super Bowl losers. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles going to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. The Bengals 2.5-point home favorites. And then my favorite game of the weekend this upcoming week, the Buffalo Bills going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. The Bills 3-point road favorites. If you want to get in on the action, spice up your football watching experience, head on over to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Monday edition of Locked On Oilers, where we are working our way through why the Oilers are off to such a crummy start. And look, you don't need me to tell you this. I'm going to assume that if you're listening to an Oilers podcast on top of watching Oiler games, you're watching every game. You can tell something's not right. When you watch, the passing isn't as crisp, the positioning isn't as stout, the individual decisions are leaving a little bit to be desired, and all of it stems from the simple fact the Oilers have a lot going on. And that's not an excuse. You know, when you're this good as the Oilers are on paper, you don't get to make excuses that, oh, we're trying to figure things out. We got a lot of new faces. We as the audience can say, well, I understand the context here. They are trying to load up Draisaitl and McDavid together to get their offense going. And once they're able to get their offense going on a baseline level, they would ideally like to split those two guys up. They want to try and get Victor Arvidsson going. They've done an amicable job of getting Jeff Skinner going by playing him with McDavid and Hyman, who are two very talented players. But the Oilers are designed to bury teams based on their star power. There is maybe one other team in the NHL which is with as much top six juice as the Oilers have in Colorado, and Colorado is off to an abysmal start as well. When you are asking a lot out of a handful of guys, it puts those players, those handful of guys, it puts them under extreme stress. It puts them under an extreme microscope. And because of that, when those guys falter, it's almost impossible for the team to prevail. And I'm not forecasting doom and gloom for Colorado. I think even if I'm not as sold on them as a Stanley Cup contender, I do envision Colorado is going to be a playoff team. But circling back around to the Oilers, the schedule being as broken up as it is not ideal. Right now, the Oilers need game time. They need reps. They need opportunities. They need to be playing hockey as much as they can. This very spread out, very staggered schedule of 1 game, 3 days off, 2 days off game. It's really challenging to get into a rhythm, get into a routine, and especially for the guys who are coming in and out of the lineup, whether you're Emberson, Stetcher, Dermott, etc. When you can't get into a game consistently and you have to sit out for a week or 3 days, if you're a backup goalie and you need to get your mind right to be able to play after not starting for a week or so, it is really hard to ramp yourself up for that when you don't have normal timing. And hockey is such a timing and instinctual game. If you don't have your timing down, if you don't have the ability to really get a feel for your game, you look off. And hockey is a feel game. It is instinctual. And yeah, guys have habits, they have tendencies, but you got to read the game. You got to make decisions. You got to get the puck where it needs to go so someone else can get it where they need it to go, so you can get a scoring chance, so you can score a goal. All of it is interconnected. And right now, the Oilers are a wholly disjointed hockey team. The Oilers are talented enough that they are never out of a game. And you saw them force their way back into that Flyer game last week in a way that really set them up to feel good. That, hey, we are not playing great. We are not gelling as a unit. But when chips are down, we have bottom six guys in Connor Brown and Henrique and Arvidsson and Podkolzin and Corey Perry and Derek Ryan who are more than able to hold their own. If we are in these games, our big boys, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nuge, Jeff Skinner, I'll throw in there, Bouchard, I'll throw in there, Ekholm, I'll throw in there. Our big dogs can put a game away for us, even if we're not playing well. And I don't want to say that's the sign of a good team because the Oilers' record isn't great right now, but when you don't play well and you're still in the game, that bodes well in the long term. Because if you're consistently playing well, whatever's not working will eventually come around. You know, if you're winning games or you're in all of these games, you're going to overtime and losing, you are doing something right. Now it's incumbent upon the Oilers to take that next step, to keep building that out. And it's early. You know, we're all of 6 games into the season. The Oilers are not 100% healthy. We don't know how healthy Darnell Nurse is, how feasible it is for him to get any better playing every game. But right now, still feel bullish. I am still bullish on the Oilers and their trajectory. Now, if we're still having this conversation 2 or 3 weeks from now, then I think it's fair to say, all right, we need to really shake things up. We got to try as many different combinations as we can. Maybe we change how we're doing things on the penalty kill or on the power play. But right now, you got to get Hyman going. You got to get the big dogs going. And until they get going, it's going to be hard. As much as I like Adam Henrique and Connor Brown and Podkolzin and Nuge as hockey players, and it might be a little unfair to have Nugent-Hopkins in this category as, you know, supporting cast members, but if those guys are the only ones scoring for you, it's going to be hard to win a lot of games because the Oilers are a star team. They are based on winning and dominating the minutes that their best players are out there. And when you don't dominate those minutes, when you are struggling in those minutes, or you're just failing to score, it's going to make things feel a lot more difficult. And right now, I think a lot of the Oilers' issues are internal. I think it's simply a matter of they need to string together some good hockey, build out a little confidence, and then everything else falls into place. When you're as talented as they are, it's really that simple. 1 good shift, 2 good shifts, 3 good shifts, 4 good shifts. Real quick, that's a good period. You string together a couple good periods, you probably win the game. You string together a couple good games, you have a good week, a couple good weeks, you have a good month, a couple good months, you have a good season. That's the goal. String together good habits in short-term plays, build it out. Baby steps. This is a marathon, not a sprint. We got 76 more of these to go, but that'll do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I will talk to you guys tomorrow, but before we get out of here, make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple or Spotify, give the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We hit 1,600 subs on YouTube. Very happy with that. The goal, 2,000 by the end of the regular season. The Oilers get to like a cup final again, we're going to shoot for 2,500, but 2,000 is a realistic goal for the course of a hockey season. But that will just about do it for today's show. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Until then, let's go Oilers.